He did, Kathy, but then I think he I think we're done with the announcements. Okay, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. We're here today for the Articulation Parent Coffee, and I'm going to introduce myself in the panel, but before we do that, I thought it would be a nice idea to go through the agenda for today's meeting so you can understand what we're going to be talking about. After we do introductions, I'd like to talk to you all about what the DHS team is doing to prepare to receive all of your children come September. After we do that, we'll talk a little bit about all of the supports that we have here at DHS. We'll start big, thinking about all of the supports available to general education students and special education students, and then we'll drill down and we'll talk specifically about special education supports. Before we go into questions and answers, we have one more little slide that talks about, you know, if you have a question, who should you reach out to? This is a big transition, not just for your child, but for you as parents. And there's going to be probably questions that you have along the way, and so hopefully that can help point you in the right direction. And then after that, we'll take some time for questions that we have from the audience. I do want to let you know that we are recording this presentation, and at the end of the slide presentation, we'll stop so that we can take questions and answers. That portion will not be recorded. And so without further ado, I would like to introduce our panel. So my name is Janine Newell. I'm the Program Director for Special Education and Student Services here at Darien High School, and I'm going to pass to the panel. They'll introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Christiana Antonucci. I'm a special education teacher here at the high school.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Rashid Sofian. I'm a special education teacher and math teacher here at the high school.
Hello, Matt Pavia. I'm here representing Fitch Academy.
Okay, great. Thank you. So before we go into too much information, I thought it would be good to give you some basic numbers about the high school here. So here at the high school, we have approximately 300 students with IEPs, and the support staff that we have in place to support all of those students. For special education teachers, we have 19 special education teachers, one of whom is at Fitch Academy. We have 5 school psychologists, one is at Fitch Academy. We have 3 speech-language pathologists. We have 8 school counselors. We have 1 social worker, and we have 1 teen talk counselor. Paraprofessionals, the numbers vary year by year. This year we have about 20, and depending on the needs of our student next year, we'll likely have the same. And then in terms of itinerant positions that work across the district, we have occupational therapists, physical therapists, assistive technology specialists, and behavioral support staff. So that's just a round idea of the department that we have here, all of who's in place to support your student. Okay. So now if we think about the preparation work that the team here at DHS is doing, We're going to talk a little bit about the transition timeline. Kathy is going to talk us through that. If you went to last week's curriculum night, you had a little bit of a preview, but we're going to review that again. And then I'll talk a little bit about the articulation PPT. So Kathy?
Yes, I see some familiar faces from last Wednesday. And that recording is on the middle school and the high school website. If you have any trouble finding it, you can reach out to me or either one of the administrative assistants in the counseling offices for some directions. You probably know then that we started meeting with the students at Middlesex in their science classes. It was around our exam period here, so anywhere between January 10th and the 22nd, we had a classroom lesson with one of the counselors from the high school and a middle school counselor, and I tried to attend many of them to get the kids excited and to learn about the school and where to find resources. As I mentioned, the 8th grade presentation hopefully was a great overview, and again to expose you to some resources that are on the website, or you have contact information for any one of the department chairs to ask about any questions you might have about recommendations or placements or programs. I did run up here from a course selection class this morning, and I'll be heading back to the middle school. We're actually putting elective requests into Aspen this week. The students have their core academic recommendations, they're adding electives in, and Casey Westcott, I believe, I know she sent an email out on Monday with access to a Google form if you would like to level down in a course or change a world language. The waiver form if you'd like to have a discussion with one of the department chairs about a more rigorous course, will be sent out on next Monday when we finish the course registration process. So we need to have all of our course requests, level downs, waivers, electives, all of that in the computer for Mark Mazzoni on March 14th, so they can start building the master schedule. While that's happening, Janine's going to talk a little bit more about the articulation PPTs, which will be the special education side of the schedule and services the students get. We're also going to have the kids up here on March 21st to have a breakfast sandwich and get some advice from the upperclassmen. And then at the end of August, there is a new student registration. That's the actual first day of school, right? Day before school. And the kids will have their schedule and be able to walk around to their classes and meet their teachers. One of the questions I did get was, when will you know what is scheduled? And our goal is to have courses scheduled, not the actual schedule with teachers and periods, but the courses scheduled will be to you hopefully by the beginning of June, so we can make any edits or corrections that we need to make. And then the students will have their schedule before school starts, so they'll actually go to the period and the teacher that they have for class when they come to orientation in August.
Thank you, Kathy. Okay, so now, as Kathy mentioned, part of this timeline involves the articulation PPT. So the purpose of this PPT meeting is really to create an opportunity for the MMS team and the DHS team to collaborate and learn to understand your child, the program that they're currently receiving at the middle school, and then determine the best way to translate that here at the high school. And so talking about the services that are in place and how do we reflect that here at the high school. We really encourage students to attend this PPT. Their voice is so important, especially during this transition, and so I hope that you'll share that with your child as well. They can either stay home with you and attend the PPT, or if they are at school, MMS will support finding a space for them so that they can log into the meeting and be able to participate that way. In terms of some logistics, the notice of your child's PPT will be sent via email. A lot of you have probably already started to receive those notices. The notice will tell you the date and time of the PPT. It will also include a Zoom link for the meeting. And those meetings are set to occur between February 10th and March 14th. And the reason that we try to schedule within that window, as Kathy mentioned, is all of this information is crucial for us to build a master schedule here at the high school. We need to know how many students are going to be recommended for co-taught classes or comprehensive classes, which we'll talk a little bit about later in the program, so that we can make sure that we're staffing accordingly. And so it's really important that we try to have those meetings within that window. There may be outliers, and that's okay, but that's our goal. That's why we're really trying to schedule within that tight window, so we have the best information possible to build a program that's going to support all students. Okay. The last piece that I'll talk about in terms of preparation that the team does here, this is going to be a little bit later at the end of the summer. We do what's called a round robin here at the high school. And so the round robin, again, is an opportunity for collaboration, and this time it's the special education teachers here at the high school who now have the students on their caseload, and they will have opportunities to collaborate with all of the general education teachers who are going to be teaching that student for that school year. And so at that point, the schedules are set. We know the teachers that the students will have, and those teachers are able to come together to discuss the learning profile of that student. They can review the accommodations and modifications and discuss a plan for how those accommodations will be implemented in class. And so this is another great opportunity for us to make sure that everyone is prepared before the first day of school, so that when your kids come into school, everything is in place for them. All right? Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about some of those general education supports. And I believe we're going to start with Meg. Thank you.
Thank you. So in addition to any services that are provided through special education, there are also some opportunities for some general education supports, which are delivered in a general education classroom. So while these wouldn't be on a service grid of an IEP, it may be something that's discussed at the articulation meeting that you have as part of your student's overall program. So we have team talk classes, which we'll talk about in a little bit more depth, lab classes, which are different than science labs. We have an amazing counseling department and mental health suite, including our psychologists, social workers, our school counselors, our teen talk counselor. And then we have lots and lots of opportunities for extra help around the building with teachers and with some of our students. So a team talk class is 2 content area specialists. So they might be recommended for a Western Civ team talk class, which would be with 2 history teachers. So some of the benefits of that, obviously both the teachers are experts in their content area. It helps to reduce the ratio a little bit. They're able to do some parallel teaching inside the classroom where one group might be working on one thing and another group is working on another. So if the team, you being an important member of that team, feels that your student would benefit from having those 2 content specialists in a lower ratio classroom, we can do that. The next one is a lab class. So your children will have biology labs. All the 9th graders take biology, and they'll have 2 what we call mini periods of science lab. This is a little bit different. So these classes occur in the areas outside of science, so history, English, and math. They are 4 little small 40-minute periods, so almost every other day, about 40 minutes every other day that they occur in the schedule. Often with their teachers, their lecture teachers, so their regular math teacher or their regular history teacher, but not always. The goal of a lab class is really to give some time for pre-teaching and reteaching. So if the student really benefits from being, previewing what's coming or having a chance to review the documentary they just watched or the article they just read, and really needs a little bit more time with that content, then this could be a really great distinction, a really great opportunity for them. Neither team taught nor the lab appears in the transcript, so there's no demarcation on a transcript of that. The lab class is not credit bearing, even though it has extra time in the schedule. So again, we'll discuss as a team really which, if any of these models would really benefit your child. And the only thing I will say is, as with anything, the more constraints you put on a schedule, the trickier it is. So sometimes because the lab does take additional time in the schedule, it might mean that a student is not able to take an elective, or they aren't able to start in a world language because only have so many periods in a day. So we'll be able to lay out for you during the articulation kind of what there's room for after we identify the needed special education services and make some decisions about priorities if we need to. But just to be transparent that sometimes scheduling wise, it's tricky to get all of this in there. So it sounds like, of course, like let's get all the supports in there. But as with anything, the more constraints you put on it, the trickier it gets to be scheduling. So the PPT with you will decide what the best program is for the student, and then our magical counseling department will do our very best to make that work within our master schedule.
Thank you, Megan. Kathy's going to talk to us a little bit about the mental health supports that we have in place here.
Maybe this is a segue to mental health supports, but I'm going to go off slide for a second just to say when you're thinking about supports, we're coming out of classrooms right now where we're talking about students about electives and being excited about the high school. So I really would encourage you to have a conversation with the whole team about maybe if the students want to, they're going to do their core academics and get some supports here and they're really excited about their elective, that perhaps you would delay starting a world language. Think out of the box a little bit to help them have some balance and really find some joy in some of the things that they're doing at the high school. So we have 8 school counselors, as Janine mentioned, and they are split alphabetically, and they will follow your child and you for all 4 years. Obviously, as a veteran school counselor, I believe that school counselors are great resources for you here, and that the relationship that you and your child form with the school counselor is going to help them navigate high school and beyond. So I would encourage that relationship. The school psychologists are assigned by grade and will support students with IEPs, triennial testing, those kind of things. Our social worker is available to all students, and all 3 of those positions, school counselor, school psychologist, and school counselor, social worker, and school psychologist are trying to implement more of the DBT strategies that I think you might be learning from the middle school. So we'll continue that work up here. And the Wellness Center is such a great resource that was established a few years ago, but open full-time now. And there is a lot of work in there for students to take a break, refresh, learn some of those DBT or practice some of those DBT strategies to be mindful or relax, unplug from technology. So that's a great resource. We also have a teen talk counselor, as Meg mentioned, right in the cul-de-sac, that you call it. It's a U-shaped hallway with a school psychologist, social worker, teen talk counselor, and all 8 counselors, and me and the 2 administrative assistants for the counseling department up there. And it was nice that we were able to move the teen talk counselor up there. She's a resource available to all students. And she also can help if you're looking to get some supports outside of school. She has a network that she can access to help with those kind of things. And then really, again, to finish where I started on helping your student find something that brings them joy, or they find their tribe or something they're passionate about. We have such a great array of clubs and activities, and we really encourage students to join them. They're here for academics, but we want it to be fun and for them to find people that they really enjoy being with. So there'll be a club fair during the lunch waves in September, and the kids can walk around and hear about all the different clubs, and there'll be plenty of information, and there's information on the website as well.
Great, thank you, Kathy. And then the last thing we're going to talk about in terms of general education supports is Fitch Academy. Sometimes you'll hear this mentioned in a PPT, but it is a general education support, and Matt Pavia is here to tell you a little bit more.
Hello, everyone. This feels a little like a Senate confirmation hearing. But anyway, I'm Matt Pavia. I'm the lead teacher at Fitch Academy. Before that, I've worked at Darien High School for over 20 years. So Fitch is now as far as I can tell, Fitch is in its 10th year. And we were created as an alternative program within Darien High School that would meet the needs of students whose needs are very unique and require a less structured, less formal environment and setting. And so we are off campus. We are in an office park behind Nielsen's off the Post Road, and we have a whole suite of classrooms and shared space and everything. And we can accommodate students from 9th through 12th grade. We can accommodate students of all ability levels. We've offered AP and honors courses to students who have needed them. I think it all just depends on the kids we have at any given time and the overall needs of the schedules and our staffing. But I would say that we are probably best equipped to work with students who have social emotional needs, particularly mental health needs, that have been interfering with their ability to succeed at the high school. So for one reason or another, the high school has just not been working for them. It's too big, it's too formal, it's too structured. And maybe they're struggling with depression or anxiety or school phobia, and attendance is an issue. And so when we get students, whether it's at the beginning of a school year or somewhere during the school year, our approach is to try to first make them members of a community. There's a great emphasis on being a part of a community and just radical acceptance of everyone who's there, and celebrating all of our different interests and abilities and quirks, and then trying to restore confidence and resilience and ultimately prepare them for success beyond high school. We have a few full-time staff. So I'm the lead teacher, but I also teach English and some history classes. We have science, math, Spanish, and another history teacher who are splitting their time between the high school and Fitch. And then we have a full-time special ed teacher, a full-time nurse, and a full-time school psychologist. We also run a community class that is sort of, it's in place to meet students' sort of group counseling goals, but it's also a great place to build community and to work on dialectical behavioral therapy skills, DBT skills. And students also are engaged in regular meetings with our school psychologist. They're supported, their IEP is supported by the special ed teacher. They take the same classes that they would take at Darien High School. The transcript says Darien High School. Their diploma comes from Darien High School. There's no asterisk or any special designation for Fitch. Obviously, the way that we do things, the pace of learning sometimes, the way we arrive at the goals, the path we take to arriving at the curricular goals might be a little bit different, but we do hold the same academic standards and curricular goals. We are following the high school's curriculum. As I said before, generally speaking, we're best equipped to work with kids who have depression or anxiety or school phobia, and that is interfering, and for whom the high school is just too big and too intimidating. I would say that we're probably not the first stop destination for students who have behavioral or oppositional defiant sort of issues. That might be that might be something that's better addressed in one of the other offerings that the school districts has. And I think that's about it for now. I mean, obviously, I'll answer questions if anyone has them later.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Okay, so as I mentioned, we started broad to think about the general education supports that we have in place here at the high school, and now we're going to get a little more specific and think about the continuum of services in place to support students with IEPs. I think it's important for us all to remember that any recommendation that is made for a student at a PPT, that decision is made on an individualized basis. And so at the articulation PPT, for example, we will be meeting the student where they're at in that moment in time. And so the recommendations will reflect that. Those recommendations could change at some point during the 9th grade year, sometime during the 10th grade year. But you know, we are responsive to who your child is in that moment and what their needs are. And so some of those services that we recommend could include any combination of the following. Learning Center, and you'll hear more detail about all of these recommendations, but Learning Center is our version of Resource Room here at the high school. I like to say this is really the bedrock of the IEP here at the high school, and for some children, this is a little bit of a transition to understand that this is one of the main ways that they will make progress on their goals and objectives in their IEP is through the Learning Center. Co-taught classes are also offered in English and math. Comprehensive classes, which you'll hear a little bit more about, direct reading instruction, related services, and then we have 2 specialized programs here at the high school, CORE and the Excel program, and we'll talk a little bit about those in more detail. But that's just a brief overview. Today I have 2 of our wonderful veteran special education teachers, and they're gonna talk you through a little bit in more detail. So we will start with Rashid, who's gonna talk to you about Learning Center.
Good morning again. I'm Rashid Sofian. I'm a junior and senior case manager for our students here with IEPs. Learning Center is an opportunity for us to really tackle some of those obstacles that are, enabling our students from accessing the curriculum. Using the goals and objectives, we've developed mini lessons where we try and accomplish the small goal for the day. It could be diving into an analytical paper or a question, getting them to annotate, teaching study strategies or organizational skills that they may implement on their next assessment. We really try and tie in some of the curriculum into these mini lessons to get buy-in from our exceptional students, but to also support them into something that they can see tangible benefit from. We really use these mini lessons anywhere between 15 and 20 minutes to really drive that instruction to meet those goals in the IEP. And it's also an opportunity for the students to also understand what an IEP is. For the first time, they're understanding that they have accommodations and how to advocate for those accommodations. They're also understanding that what extra time looks like. They're also using that time to maybe dive deeper into a concept that they may need more support from their content area teacher. So it's the facilitation of the self-advocacy piece, it's working on the goals and objectives, it's also touching on some of those employment and transitional skills like building a resume or understanding your own strengths and weaknesses. It's really an opportunity for the students to learn who they are as a learner with their special education teacher, who here at the high school, we typically stay with our kids for 2 years. We do like a freshman-sophomore loop, and then a junior-senior loop to really try and become familiar with the students and then also become really proficient in those subject areas that we're supporting in. We implemented a testing center a few years ago, and the testing center is an opportunity. A lot of our students have extra time or various accommodations that allow them to access an alternate setting. There is a full-time testing center where students can choose to access their alternate setting or use that time for extra time. Now, there are some exceptions. Some of our students require orally read tests or other accommodations that can't be done in the testing center, and that's usually a coordination between the case manager and the content area teacher to help the exceptional student.
Thank you, Rashid.
Yep.
Christiana is now going to talk to us a little bit about co-teaching.
So co-teaching occurs in math and in English, as Janine mentioned, and it consists of one special education teacher and one general education teacher, which is different from team taught classes, which Megan mentioned earlier. Students who require co-taught classes and services will be provided with specially designed instruction within that class session. So in order to do that, the co-teachers will typically use different kinds of models like parallel teaching or station teaching to make sure that your child gets the specialized instruction that's required within that class session.
Okay, thank you. And Rashid, you want to talk about comprehensive classes?
Sure. Comprehensive classes are, unique in nature because it's all students who receive special education supports, typically in an area of relative weakness. So for an example, I teach the comprehensive math classes. Our students are working on their goals and objectives within mathematics, but then also being supported through a curriculum that's modified and paced a little bit differently than the 300 level course. It's taught by duly certified special education and content area teachers. It's aligned to the 300 level course. I like to describe it as almost like it's like an iceberg or a pyramid, while the 300 level course dives deeper into broader concepts. In the comprehensive classes, we touch on those specific concepts, but we don't expand on them to the point where students can get somewhat lost in the material. So I try and develop a curriculum that exposes them to all the stuff that they're going to need for the next section. So if they're in geometry, we're really going to develop factoring and understanding, simplifying expressions and systems, because they're going to see it again in Algebra 2 as they progress through the high school. We offer the comprehensive classes in all the academic classes that are required for graduation. I should say the students find it to be they find a lot of success because sometimes the pacing is essential in learning. The class sizes are a little bit smaller, so there's a really ample opportunity for questions, for group work. We're really well supported through our services department. We have access to different tools for kids to use as to extend their learning, to interact with different shapes, 3D shapes. It's a really good opportunity for kids to feel supported in their relative weaker classes, or that they perceive to be weak in.
Okay, thank you, Rashid. And Christiana, do you want to talk about direct reading?
Sure.
Okay.
So direct reading provides students with specialized instruction in an area of need that's been identified. So that need could be in comprehension or decoding or fluency. The direct reading class is taught by a special education teacher, and that special education teacher provides the specially designed instruction that's outlined in your child's IEP so that they're making growth in the areas that have been identified.
Thank you. Okay, and as I mentioned earlier, we have 2 specialized programs here at the high school. The Excel program is a program, it's modeled after the ALC program at the middle school. And so this is a program for students who have a comprehensive range of needs. We offer a modified curriculum with an emphasis on functional academics and life skills, and transition skills. And so in that program, students will engage in various community outings a few times during the year to different sites within the community. There's also a wide range of skills that we work on that you can see there on the slide. And there's also extracurricular opportunities for students. So that's a little bit about the Excel program. And then the last program that we'll talk about is the CORE program. CORE stands for Creative Opportunities to Restructure Education. And the focus of the CORE program is to offer both learning center and community as a way to address not just the academic needs of a student, but also the emotional needs. And so the structure of this program, we have a special education teacher, we have a social worker, and there's a full-time paraprofessional staffed in the room at all times. You've heard a lot about DBT, so dialectical behavioral therapy is something that we really use across the department, but the CORE program, this is one of the foundational pieces. The community aspect, where students are in group, they are getting direct instruction in those DBT skills so that they're starting to develop the coping skills that they'll need if and when they're finding an anxious moment in the classroom, or they're dealing with some stress or some depression, that they can call upon those skills. And so the core room is available to students all day, and it really is meant to serve as a safe space. If they need to step away from a class, they can access the core room to receive some coaching in those DBT skills with the goal of eventually returning to class. So that's a little bit about the core program. And the last thing that we'll go over before we take some questions from the audience is communication. So as I mentioned earlier, this is a big transition for everybody, and there are a lot of voices to be heard from here, some at the panel and some that are not here but are in the school to support you. And so at different times during the year, you may have a question that comes up. It may be about a specific class or an assignment. It may be about the services in the IEP. It could be about a social concern that you may be having. And so I thought a cheat sheet to help you identify who's the right person to contact in different situations. This is not an exhaustive list, and certainly if you reach out to anyone, if they're not the right person, they will kind of direct you to the right person that can help you. But I thought this might be helpful to think about when you're wanting to reach out and get some answers or to get some support. And if all else fails, you can reach out to me. That's my email address, and I would be happy to support you or direct you in the right way. All right, so that's our presentation. I want to thank the panel for their expertise and their participation. I also failed to mention that we have Shirley Klein here, the Assistant Superintendent for Student Services, and Sarah Ramali from the middle school is also here. And so if you guys have questions, we'd love to take some time to hear some questions that you may have. Go ahead.